While waiting for GTA 6 to release, I've been itching to take on a Rockstar game for my next speedrunning challenge, and the game I decided to go with is Bully. Bully is an action-adventure game from 2006, later remastered to the Scholarship Edition in 2008. The game features Jimmy Hopkins, a delinquent teenager who has already been expelled from 7 schools prior to being enrolled to Bulworth Academy, and now has to survive a full year at this boarding school while his mom runs off on a honeymoon with her new husband. The school is well educated on his backstory, but Dr. Crabblesnitch is confident in his ability to correct Jimmy's behavior to turn him into a respectable member of society. It would appear that Jimmy may not be inherently bad, but instead has his own brand of justice that he delivers to those that deserve it. Throughout this game, we'll have to deal with the degenerate school faculty, run-ins with the police, as well as the various cliques that reside within the town of Bulworth. Not to mention, all while trying to complete each objective as quickly as possible, because as you know, this is a speedrun. This has been one of my favorite speed games I've worked on, and I really hope you guys enjoy. So starting off the speedrun, I'll skip through the intro cinematics and head into the school. After completing missions, we'll begin to gain the respect of each of the cliques, but since we're just starting out, Jimmy will be targeted by the bullies and the jocks, so it's best to just avoid them at all costs. Also, it's faster to spam run rather than holding down sprint, and this will be our main fastest movement option for now. After meeting with the headmaster, we'll begin making our way to the boys' dorm to get changed into the school uniform. The fastest way to leave the building is to jump off these railings and then leave through the front door. Anytime an NPC is walking through the doorway, the load trigger will remain active until the door shuts, which means during these moments, we don't have to press interact to open them, saving small fractions of time here and there. Upon reaching the dorm, we'll be confronted by bullies who want a piece of the new kid, so we'll take them on. This may just be a tutorial, but the RNG in this fight can actually make a big difference in time for how short it is. We'll run up to the bully and block his attacks until the game prompts us to do some combos. So we'll do some of those, grab him, punch him in the face, throw him to the ground, and kick him while he's down. We'll then need to get his health low enough to humiliate him, and that's the fight. Each humiliate animation takes different amounts of time, and you can lose a few seconds depending on which one Jimmy decides to use. In most cases, we don't want to humiliate enemies to beat them because doing so usually takes longer than finishing the fight normally. Following this fight, we'll have an unskippable cutscene where the leader of the bullies, Russell, is enraged seeing his friend on the ground and attacks Jimmy. His screaming attracts the attention of the nearby prefects and the fight is broken up. After entering the dorm, we'll be approached by Gary, a senior at Bulworth who offers to be friends with Jimmy to help him out. Jimmy might be trusting, but me, not so much. So during the fade-in, I'll punch Gary and then go use a vending machine. Ideally, what we want to happen here is have Gary or a nearby bully attack Jimmy while he gets his drink. Not only does this skip the vending machine animation, but it also makes it so the marker for the closet appears instantly rather than having to wait for it. The RNG up till this point may seem trivial, but bad luck can easily result in 10 seconds lost in only the first few minutes. After changing, we'll meet another new friend, Pete, our femboy king. After skipping the cutscene, I want to mash interact as quickly as possible to pop up the save menu, and things are going to begin to get a little unconventional. This speedrun community uses the in-game timer to time runs, so once the save menu pops up, the timer will pause, and I'm safe to take my time for a moment without it costing me any time. I'll save the game, and then reload an entirely different save file provided by the community. This save file is located near an arcade cabinet, so we'll interact with it, and then press B to back out. When the menu appears with the option to exit the machine, instead of choosing either option, I'll just press back again, which for some reason puts the game in a very weird state, activating a bug called Dialogue Disabled Manipulation, or DDM for short. I'll explain more about how this bug works in a moment, but once this menu is closed, I'm all good to reload my original save file and get back to the run. Next, we'll head out of the dorm and go back to the school to meet up with Gary to give Jimmy a tour. On the way, if a prefect is found walking in front of the dorm, we can punch him to escort us to the infirmary, which is located near the school's entrance. Assuming we have a good prefect spawn, this can save around 2 to 3 seconds. While in the school, something is definitely off. Yeah, you know what? I think I know what it is. There's no dialogue. So the DDM bug that we activated earlier made it so no character dialogue outside of skippable cutscenes plays at all, which conveniently means we can skip a lot of the standing around we normally have to do here. Although there are still these dialogue boxes that appear on screen with tips that are on set timers, and they can't be skipped, so we will have to wait for those, as well as any scripted NPC interactions. So there still is a bit of waiting around, but it's not too bad. Normally I would say loading an entirely separate save file to execute glitches during a speedrun probably crosses the line as far as most speedruns are concerned, but I really like the idea of skipping 8 minutes of purely dialogue during the run, so I'll try not to complain. Moving on, there aren't many ways to save time here, just opportunities to waste it. For example, after exiting the trash can, I'll want to move along this black line on the ground before regrouping with Gary, because if I move too far to the right, this cutscene with Unice will take forever to start, wasting several seconds. Another example would be if I lock onto Unice too early, Jimmy will stop walking, so I'll want to wait to lock on once he gets into position. Anyways, someone stole Unice's chocolates, so we'll tackle the culprit in the bathroom, deliver some quick blows to the face, and bring the chocolates back to her. On the way back, once I'm close to Unice, I'll jump towards her, lock on during the jump, and interact with Jimmy lands, allowing him to walk a bit quicker than normal. After heading to the cafeteria, Gary teaches us about all the cliques at the school, including the nerds, the preps, the greasers, and the jocks. Following this, we'll have our first class, which is the only class we'll actually participate in during the entire run. This is because this class is Chemistry 1, which gives us the ability to make firecrackers with a chem set in the dorm. Firecrackers are insanely useful throughout the run, because without them, there's no other consistent way to deal quick damage to Jimmy. Upon leaving Chem 1, we'll want to throw a firecracker and jump over it to deal 50% damage to Jimmy's health. This is a bit trickier than it looks, as if you press the right trigger too quickly, he'll just drop the firecracker on the ground behind him. Also, if anything is off with the timing of the jump, you won't get full damage. For some reason, standing next to a firecracker, or just holding one until it explodes, does less damage, and it's only when you perfectly jump over a grounded firecracker that you get full damage. Very strange quirk about this game. In the mission you're watching in the background, a bully named Davis begins berating Jimmy with a slingshot, so a chase ensues following him around the school into the auto shop. We'll want to avoid bully attacks here at all costs because they can interrupt opening these gates and lose a ton of time, especially if they grab Jimmy. Jumping is a good idea here since jumping adjusts Jimmy's hitbox and he can't be grabbed. But still, a lot of these bullies will lunge forward with their attacks, making them nearly impossible to avoid, so you kinda just have to do your best. All it takes to beat Davis is throwing this brick, followed by a firecracker to the face, and that's the end of the mission. After completing this mission, we'll unlock the slingshot. Since the auto shop is so far away from the boys' dorm, the fastest way to return is to throw a firecracker and use it to death warp to the infirmary. Before the next mission slingshot, we'll want to restock on firecrackers, which we can do so by using the chem set in the dorm. Normally you're only able to use a chem set once per day, so to get around this, we can save and reload the file to fill up the rest of the inventory. We do have the option of only making one set of firecrackers, and can attempt to get the second set as a drop from a handful of different boxes. But I only go for this strat when I have bad luck in the earlier half of Chapter 1. The save file strat is just way more consistent overall. Heading into the next mission, Gary reveals that he's planning on taking over the school, and wants to take Jimmy around the campus to try out his new slingshot. First we'll head over to the parking lot and shoot 3 windows out of the bus. You can shoot the slingshot a lot quicker while being crouched to save a bit of time here. Next we'll head over to the football field to mess with the football players. Normally you're supposed to hide in a tree to shoot each football player, but instead what we'll do is climb this tree to activate the players, then drop down and head to the bleachers. From here we can throw a firecracker towards the middle of the crowd and hopefully knock out a good chunk of the players. Any remainders will have to be quickly taken out with a slingshot before Mr. Burnt notices. Also, immediately after shooting our last shot, we'll want to switch back to the firecrackers, because you can't switch equipment while the mission pass screen is up. I'll use an audio cue to know when to throw the second firecracker, and use it to death warp back to the infirmary right after the mission officially completes. Hey guys, I hope you've been enjoying the video so far. I'd like to take a quick break to talk about today's video sponsor, Circle. Circle is the easiest way to get in your daily water consumption. There's over 100 different flavors to choose from to enhance your water by using these sip cartridges. Each cartridge has a little slider on it ranging from 1 to 9, which will allow you to change the intensity of the flavor. I've had my Circle bottle for a couple weeks now, and just by leaving it by my desk, I've been able to drink a ton of extra water every day, and my favorite flavor so far is the black cherry. For the sip cartridges, there's a bunch of different brands to choose from as well. Some of them contain electrolytes, some contain caffeine, and some contain vitamins, whatever suits you best. Circle is also 0 calorie, has 0 artificial flavors, 0 artificial coloring, which is great because I can just drink as much of this as I want. Get your Circle bottles today by going to drinkcircle.com/EZScape and get a free white stainless steel bottle and a free sips cartridge with any new order over $35. Thanks again to Circle for sponsoring me. Now let's get back to the speedrun. From here we'll head to the library and start the mission Save Algie. One of the nerds named Algie is too scared to go to his locker and wants Jimmy to escort him for a couple bucks. Once outside, I'll instantly begin charging the slingshot to shoot a bully around the corner before he's even able to target Algie. By taking him out early, the other bullies will still target Algie, but for some reason they won't appear on the minimap, which means the game won't stop us if we attempt to enter the school, saving quite a bit of time. Once in the school, we'll beeline straight to the bathroom so Algie can use the toilet. While waiting for him, we can kinda just do whatever, like open the nearby stall to find Unice hooking up with a middle schooler, or use one of the toilets. Once Algie gets in the stall, the bathroom will get stormed by 2 bullies, and we'll want to take them both out with charged headshots from the Slingshot, which will always be our strongest damage option without requiring any ammo. The ginger bullies will always take a bit more charge to take out, as they have more health. While waiting for Algie to finish up, we can jump off the upper level to deal a bit of damage to Jimmy. After 2 rotations of this, we'll head to Algie's locker, ideally arriving there before the marker appears. If we try to lock onto Algie during the cutscene, it messes with the camera, causing Algie to path around Jimmy rather than walk away from him. If this happens, he can fully turn Jimmy around, which only saves like half a second, but free time save is free time save. Afterwards, we'll jump down to the bottom level and head to the boys' dorm for the last tutorial segment of the early game. Anytime an NPC has a blue arrow above their head, we can complete an errand for them for some extra cash or a bonus reward. Of course, we won't be completing any errands unless it's part of a mission. We can save a little bit of time here by hiding in the trash can just before the screen transition, positioning Jimmy slightly closer to the door, saving around a second. Then when delivering the package to Beatrice, there's a weird T-pose bug that occurs when frame perfectly pressing a button right when Jimmy puts his hand in his back pocket, saving 4 seconds. It's really rare to pull this off in a run, but pretty cool when it happens. Next we'll head back to the dorm and start the mission A Little Help. In this mission, Gary thinks it would be funny to pick on someone defenseless, and for some reason his choice is the hobo that's living behind a school bus in the parking lot. After arriving, Gary gets scared off by the hobo, but Jimmy sticks around, stands up to him, and earns his respect. The hobo offers to teach Jimmy fighting techniques he learned from when he served in the military, if Jimmy delivers him radio transistors. The transistor for this mission is located nearby in the auto shop, right next to the parking lot, and after grabbing it, we'll jump off the roof to do more damage to Jimmy's health, and then head back to the hobo. The move we learn is pretty insignificant, as we won't be using it during the speedrun, since the 3-piece combo is more damage overall. Following this fight, I made sure to have firecrackers already equipped when entering, so after the fade-in, I can mash the throw one, jump over it, warp back to the infirmary, and then head back to the dorm for the next mission, defend Bucky. In this mission, we're approached by Algie, who is worried about his fellow nerd friend, Bucky, who is yet to return from the auto shop. He thinks the bullies may have gotten to him. Gary sees this as a good opportunity to establish dominance over the bully leader Russell, positioning himself one step closer to dominating the school. Jimmy is a bit perplexed by this, as he doesn't want to take over the school, and Gary isn't even coming to help. But he did already agree to help out the nerds, so we'll head out. Now, depending on whether you decide to use a firecracker to take out the football team during Slingshot, or just handle it the old-fashioned way, will determine how many firecrackers you have going into this mission. Only having one firecracker isn't really a big deal, as even though a single firecracker will take out an entire group of bullies in one throw, the second group can be really annoying to throw firecrackers at, because they're usually split apart. By the time they get close enough to do damage, they've already attacked Jimmy. For this reason, it's way more consistent to headshot one from the garbage can, begin charging another shot, and then headshot the other. Since I started doing this, I've had much more consistent defend Bucky split, despite not having a firecracker for the second group, but the firecracker is still quicker overall. After finishing off the remaining bullies, I'll pick up the nearby stink bombs, and then exit the auto shop. Bucky rewards us with a skateboard he finds on the ground, and now the real speedrun begins. When wiggling the stick side to side gives the skateboard a massive speed boost, and maintaining that speed boost while riding in straight lines and avoiding NPCs, inanimate objects, and all non-skatable surfaces is a key to going fast. The skateboard can be used anywhere Jimmy is able to run, so we will be using it a lot. Jimmy can also maintain some of the speed boost from the skateboard after unequipping it, so it's often you'll see runners taking it off just before entering doorways or mission markers. The next mission, that bitch, isn't all that interesting, but we're introduced to Beatrice, who's being bullied by the lead cheerleader Mandy, who stole her chemistry notes. For this mission, we head into the girls' locker room, break into her locker, retrieve the notes, and leave a stink bomb inside. After leaving, prefects are alerted, but by throwing a stink bomb at this wall will in most cases allow Jimmy to get a gap in between him and the prefects, ensuring they don't follow him inside. Dodging prefects who spawn outside with him can be pretty tricky, and sometimes seems impossible to avoid. After returning to Beatrice, despite Jimmy rejecting the offer for a kiss before the mission started, he has a change of heart by the end. From here we'll head into the school and start the mission The Candidate. For this mission, Ernest the Nerd can be found being bullied by some of the jocks who rip down his poster to run for class president. Jimmy walks by uninterested at first, until he's offered money for his vote. But what good is one vote when Jimmy knows the bullies are going to ruin his debate speech? Ernest then decides to hire Jimmy to protect him for the duration of his speech. The thing is, because DDM is active during the speech, none of Ernest's dialogue can play, and the entire mission is skipped. I guess as it turns out, the best speech Ernest could have given was saying nothing at all. Go figure. Next, we'll head back to the dorm to finish off the last few missions of Chapter 1. Before doing so, we'll create another save since the next mission marker is located right next to the save book. We need to do this because if we try to load into Chapter 2 with DDM active, then the game will hard lock. All we need to do to disable DDM is reload the save file with the arcade machine, run to the cabinet, and this time instead of closing the exit menu with the back button, we'll choose to exit to return the game to its normal state. Then we're all good to reload the speedrun save and start the next mission, Halloween. For this mission, Jimmy is dressed up as a skeleton, PD has a pink bunny outfit, and Gary is dressed in an SS uniform, which I guess is just foreshadowing in a nutshell. As a group, they decide to pass the time by pulling some epic pranks on the students. For the most part, these pranks are pretty harmless. A kick me sign? Classic. Throwing a few eggs at students? I mean, who doesn't love a good omelet? Throwing marbles under someone's feet, crashing their spine right into the pavement? Hilarious. And to wrap it all up, we'll hit 3 people with stink bombs and another 3 with itch powder. I think I'm beginning to understand why people at the school don't like Jimmy. At this point in the game, it's getting pretty late, so if a prefect captures Jimmy, we'll be sent back to the dorm. None of the prefects can be found walking around since they're partying, but if Jimmy causes any violence to girls or younger students, they'll come chasing after him. You can get unlucky here, assuming there's no suitable NPCs, but for the most part, there usually is at least one. After arriving back at the dorm, we can fall asleep, and then start the final mission in Chapter 1, Help Gary, as no other missions are required to progress the story. In this mission, Gary is a bit excitable, shaking in place until Jimmy walks in the room. Gary orders Jimmy to come with him. Jimmy isn't interested, because if he keeps getting in trouble, he's gonna get kicked out. Gary goes on an insane rant and admits that he hasn't been taking his pills. So what does Jimmy do? He follows him. Well, I suppose it's more accurate to say Gary follows us, as we are faster than him on the skateboard. We'll arrive at some bullies hanging out in the parking lot, and Jimmy and Gary kind of beat the shit out of them, just for existing. If we were quick enough, we should take them all out before Gary arrives. Just as Gary's dialogue starts, we can shoot him, making the load zone for the school's basement active sooner. Afterwards, we'll head inside and begin pulling a series of different switches to open each door and get deeper within the school. After shooting the second switch, we'll want to destroy all nearby boxes in hopes of receiving a plank of wood. There is a chance that even after destroying every box in the vicinity that we don't get a plank, but it's pretty rare to happen. Not getting the plank means the run is essentially dead, and shortly, you'll see why. After entering the furnace room, we'll drop the plank near this wall of steam and use the fire extinguisher to put out the flames. We'll then want to quickly pick up the plank, drop it down the staircase, shoot Gary with the slingshot, and then pick the plank back up before the cutscene starts. This can be pretty tough to do, and sometimes if I'm not confident, I'll wait till Gary enters the hallway instead to do it, but trust me, any time loss is better than losing that plank. As it turns out, the interesting thing that Gary wants to show us is the Hole, a fight club located in the sewers. With Gary off his meds, he's become paranoid that Jimmy has been plotting against him, saying things about him behind his back. He's convinced Russell of similar delusions and told him that Jimmy said terrible things about his mother behind his back, tricking Russell into fighting this battle for him. This is arguably the most difficult fight in the speedrun, because anything less than a perfect fight can result in quite a bit of time loss. Personally, I like to play a pretty safe strategy during this fight, missing one strong plank attack on purpose during the fade-in, and then hitting Russell with a second. If this is done, he will always charge Jimmy and head straight into the wall, doing more damage. I'll then continue to hit him until he's fully on the ground. Once he's stood back up, I'll shoot him with the slingshot, making him charge into the wall again. I'll continue hitting him until the plank breaks. Once the plank is gone, I'll then use normal attacks until he gets into the range to be humiliated, and that's the fight. But if I did every step correctly, I should be able to humiliate him right away. I'll also want to shoot his body afterwards with the slingshot to cause the fade to happen sooner. There are versions of this fight where runners can beat him in one rotation, getting him to the exact HP necessary the same time the plank breaks, and he stands up timing to humiliate perfectly afterwards. While this is impressive, it just isn't feasible to be done in a run. I'll just stick with the rotations that allow me to keep the run alive past Chapter 1. Gary scurries away cutting ties with Jimmy, but hey, at least we're still friends with Pete. Jimmy then helps Russell out of the sewer, and makes amends with him, and he promises to stop picking on smaller kids as a fitting end to Chapter 1. Leading into Chapter 2, even the principal has been hearing rumors about Jimmy's fights, and has also been told that Jimmy has been saying things involving him and barnyard animals. Word has broken out around school that Jimmy took down Russell, piquing the interest of the preps who attempt to recruit him to the boxing team. Meanwhile, in the next mission, Hattrick vs. Galloway, the math teacher Mr. Hattrick can be seen scolding the English teacher Mr. Galloway for drinking on school grounds. Jimmy overhears the conversation, and it ends with Hattrick planning to get Galloway fired. Jimmy takes the scotch away from Galloway and offers to help him not get busted. We'll then need to run around the school collecting all the scattered bottles of liquor. You can get a bit fancy with the movement here by using the skateboard as much as possible, but that's easier said than done. After collecting the final bottle in the bathroom, Mrs. Peabody will spawn in, and we'll need to avoid her plus any other staff members that may have been on our trail. This could be a bit tricky, as I've had up to 3 teachers in this bathroom at the same time. Next, we'll exit the school and head to the school bus to deliver the bottles to Miss Phillips. This part kind of confuses me because we did all this work for essentially nothing, since after we left the office, Galloway can be seen with another bottle of liquor. And then for some reason, we're given a camera as a reward in exchange for the alcohol. Anyways, next we'll need to attract the attention of a nearby prefect. By getting busted while being truant, Jimmy gets transported straight to class. The class we load into here is Art 1, and the reason we're even attending this class in the first place is to advance the game clock forward to 11:30. This is because we'll have to wait until 4:30 anyways for a future mission to start. In order to ensure the class we receive is Art 1, it's important that we finish Chapter 1 with 9:45 in the in-game clock to get the correct class order for the rest of the game. The order we want is Art, Biology, and then Art again. Anytime after 9:45 will result in Biology popping up as the first class, and the difference between attending Art 1 and Biology is pretty big. But this is mostly due to an exploit with the Biology class I'll get into in Chapter 3. After Art class, we'll stop by the principal's office to save the game and set up DDM. Earlier we were ordered by the principal to help the school cook, so now we'll head downstairs to meet her. Her name is Edna, and in this mission last minute shopping, we'll need to explore around the downtown area to collect some of her things. This is where optimal skateboard movement really comes into play. So in terms of units, the fastest that Jimmy normally runs around at is around 25 to 26 units of speed. When using the skateboard and mashing in the same manner on flat ground, it goes a bit faster than that, hovering around the lower 30s. However, the base skateboard can go a bit faster than this when traveling downhill, and probably maxes out somewhere around 50 units. But when using the stick wiggle speed tech on flat ground, it's easy to reach speed units in the 50s, and when this is combined with downhill slopes, it's possible to reach speeds up to 80 units, over 3 times faster than the max running speed. So it's easy to see here how optimal movement can really make or break top speed running times. But refining movement isn't easy, and definitely requires extensive practice. Anyways, once in the downtown area, we'll collect meat at the Yum Yum Market, Edna's razor at the barbershop, and finally her laundry at a used clothes store. While at the market, we'll also make sure to buy a box of chocolates, a bouquet of flowers, and a carton of eggs. Runners that are only using a skateboard will usually pick up these items in opposite order than me, since it's slightly more optimal, but with the order I choose places me close to a bike. At the top level, skateboard probably outpaces the bike slightly, as it can reach an overall higher top speed, and doesn't require going out of your way to obtain. But the bike is a way more consistent movement option because of a tech called brake boosting. Anytime brake is tapped in between pumps for acceleration, the bike gets a massive speed boost reaching all the way up to the 80s for only a brief moment, before being capped to the max speed of around 64 to 66. So in most cases I would say it gets pretty close to even between the two, but the only way to truly optimize this game to max potential would be with the skateboard, so I get why people use it. Bike will still be used a lot throughout the speedrun, because like you could see while riding the dirt path back to the school, anytime we need to go off-road, the bike will be used. Once back at the school, we'll deliver the items to Edna and complete the mission. Next we'll head out to the west side of the map to Old Bulworth Vale and stop by the movie theater. This would probably be a good time to explain that for top runners, there's absolutely no way to save any time during these missions until after starting the mission Carnival date. This is because we need to wait until 4:35 before starting the mission, but top runners are usually fast enough that they can clear all objectives and show up to the Carnival date marker before it spawns, resulting in no time save or time loss. This means everything since Art 1 hasn't mattered much at all, even the slower bike movement. Top runners like Bats and Swagga generally show up to the marker for Carnival date around 15 seconds earlier than they need to, but that doesn't mean it's easy. They are the two top runners for a reason, but as I got more acquainted with the run, I started getting to Carnival date either early or just short, only losing a second or two. Anyways, back to the current mission. Once we reach Old Bulworth Vale, we'll start the mission movie date over by the movie theater. Jimmy is spotted by a girl named Pinky, who he doesn't recognize, but apparently she recognizes him, and it turns out she likes him too. She wants him to remove everyone in line for the movie theater so that she can be first in line. To do this, we're not allowed to use any violence, so we'll start out by stealing Gord's bike, luring the preps away from the stand. Next, we'll offer a box of chocolates to Unice, and then lead her to a secluded area to make out. We can run a bit ahead of her, but not too quickly because Unice isn't too quick on her feet. Then all we need to do is return to the stand and hop on the bike while waiting for Trent and Kirby to run away. The bike is useful since we'll need to travel up staircases, which can't be done on skateboard. Before heading to the next mission, we'll stop at the Aquaberry clothing store and buy a new vest to fit in with the preps. Again, right now we are trying to spend as much time in-game as possible to have all objectives completed before Carnival date. We'll then head to the Glassjaw boxing gym and take up the preps on their boxing challenge. In the gym, Jimmy spots a flyer for a boxing tournament, with the reward being a house in Old Borworthvale worth $1 million, which sounds extremely realistic for winning a high school boxing tournament. Jimmy then has to take on 3 progressively more difficult preppies in boxing. The boxing mechanics in this game are extremely underwhelming, as the most optimal way to fight is to just spam the attack button and hope for the best. It is possible to fail KOing an opponent before the time runs out, which has only happened to me once, but if it somehow happens, it definitely will result in a reset. After the third prep is defeated, Jimmy is informed that he's not allowed to win the house since his parents aren't part of the board, so they instead give him an abandoned lighthouse on the beach, which as a 15-year-old, sounds pretty sick. Also, for some reason after this mission, DDM automatically deactivates, and we won't be reactivating it again for the rest of the chapter. Afterwards, we'll load outside of the boxing club and head back inside to start the mission, the eggs. Jimmy meets up with the preps, and they're planning on egging Mr. Hattrick's house for trying to get Mr. Galloway fired. We'll grab the bike we left outside and meet up with the preps at Tad's house. One thing I haven't mentioned about the bike is that it's apparently a bit faster to wheelie with it when possible. It only makes sense to do while on straight paths, but across the entire run, I could only see it saving a few seconds at most, if even that. Anyways, once we arrive at Tad's house, we'll want to exit the bike at the same time as entering the load screen. We then shortly learn that this meeting at Tad's house was actually an ambush orchestrated by Gary, who of course told Tad that Jimmy was saying terrible things about him behind his back. The preps then begin to charge Jimmy. The gate for Tad's yard is closed, and the fastest way to get out is to knock out the guard standing near it. For this, we'll want a charge body shot and then another charge headshot to beat him quickly, but Jimmy is very likely to get tackled by somebody here. He'll drop the gate key, and we'll grab it to escape. By doing these missions, we did manage to kill quite a bit of time off the game clock, but we're still not close enough to 4:30, so we'll head down to the carnival before even starting the date to complete all the tasks early. This is a great time to get used to riding the skateboard quickly, as there are so many downhill slopes to gain speed on. Once at the carnival, we need to pay to get inside, and we'll only need to do this once. Afterwards, we'll head over to the go-kart races, but we're not doing this to participate in any races. This is because after the race begins, we can mash exit to leave the kart, immediately losing the race. Following every race, the in-game clock advances 1 hour, regardless if we win or lose, putting us a bit closer to 4:30. After doing this, we'll head over to the High Striker minigame to farm some tickets. This is the quickest game for collecting tickets, where mashing is all that's needed to win. The window for mashing is pretty generous, and I have yet to not get all 12 tickets from it. We'll need to win 4 times in a row to have at least 10 tickets. Then we can head back to town. While here, we'll also stop by the bike shop to buy the Aquaberry Cruiser to have a fast bike permanently unlocked at any garage. The reason we buy it now instead of on the way during other missions is because time advances twice as fast outside of missions, so at this point we want to optimize time spent not in missions as much as possible. Now if you're a top runner, you can finally head over and wait for the marker for Carnival date to appear, and if you're me, you'll frantically race over to it in hopes of not losing too much time. For this mission, we'll approach Pinky, who thinks she had a date planned with Jimmy, but she realizes she was actually waiting for Darby, who is 3 minutes late to the date. Darby is also her cousin, who her family is already planning on having her marry, which is a lot to unpack, but Jimmy is able to convince her to go on the date with him instead by offering flowers. We'll then head to the carnival, head into the rewards tent to buy a teddy bear, and exit. At any point before or after leaving the tent, we can aggro the police. Either way, they'll apprehend Jimmy roughly around the same time, so it's best to just do it whenever it's most convenient. Also, for some reason, her dialogue is extremely loud compared to the rest.
Thanks for a great date, Jimmy.
I guess the 10-second date was just that good. Then we'll get caught by the police and warp all the way to the police station in the eastern downtown area. We'll then head down to the nearby garage to grab our new bike and go to the boys' dorm to start the mission, Race the Veil. Pete is feeling left out, not having a proper friend group anymore, following Jimmy and Gary's falling out. Jimmy's confused where everyone else is, and Pete tells him that they are all at a bike race in Old Borworthvale. This piques Jimmy's interest and gives him an excuse to drag Pete out of the dorm. The duo then heads to the beach to race the preppies. With brake boosting, winning the race is pretty easy, but the other racers do have rubber banding to some degree, so you'll never get too far ahead of them. During the race, we'll want to not be too close to walls, as a lot of objects extend outwards much further than they appear, so it's best to err on the safe side. Honestly, I hate doing the races because it's just too much spamming. Due to the brake boost glitch existing, the more you mash, the longer you stay at max speed throughout the duration of the race, and it's a bit much on the hands. Towards the end of the race, there will be a few shortcuts through the basketball court, and we can jump off a cliff at the end. Just before ending the race, we'll want to hop off the bike and finish it on foot to skip the celebration afterwards. The owner of the bike shop will congratulate us and invite us to his shop to collect the trophy. Since we're already here, we might as well grab it now and start the next mission, Beach Rumble. In this mission, Jimmy interrupts the bike shop owner during his conversation with a greaser named Ricky. Shortly afterwards, some preppies walk in insulting the two of them. The preps then run off with Jimmy's trophy, so with the help of Ricky, we chase them down. Before going to the beach, we'll head to the garage attached to the bike shop and grab our bike. Then head down to the beach and leave the bike under the bridge for safekeeping. We'll want to shoot the first guy that runs out of the beach house, knocking him out, and then Gord will come running out with the trophy. We'll want to run up to him, completely stop moving, and then grab Gord to struggle over the trophy. After a quick mash, we'll get the trophy back, and the mission will be completed. We'll grab the bike and ride to the east side of town for the mission Tad's house. Here we find Russell manhandling the owner of the Yum Yum Market in Old Bulworthvale. Even though we bought eggs from a completely different shop, shopkeeper inquires about our purchase to see how the egging went. Jimmy admits it backfired by Tad using the eggs against him. The shop owner informs Jimmy that Tad's parents are away at a party, and now would be the perfect time for revenge, so we collect Russell and head back to Tad's house for some egging. We'll need to throw eggs into each window while avoiding the preps that come outside. If you follow the exact order I throw the eggs, you won't have to worry much about that, however. There's a pretty cool tech we can do here where if we throw an egg while standing on this corner of the grass and aim at this dark part of the window, the egg thrown will count for the window and the window behind it, saving quite a bit of time. It can be a somewhat risky maneuver because if the game doesn't register both windows as being completed, we'll already be halfway across town towards the next mission, and the mission will fail due to leaving Tad's yard. But the double egg setup is pretty consistent, so I'd say it's worth a risk. Afterwards, we'll head to the second to final mission of Chapter 2, Boxing Challenge. In this mission, Jimmy converses with Pete, and the two devise a plan to establish dominance over the preppies. Jimmy's confused because he's tried everything, but Petey tells them that all he needs to do is beat the strongest guy, Biff, in a public manner. Jimmy likes this idea, so he heads to the boxing club to challenge him. This is probably the most difficult boxing fight of the game, but it's sort of hard to tell because the strategy remains the same. We just spam attack until Biff gets low on health, and then hit him with a half-charge attack to knock him out. Afterwards, Jimmy begins gloating in front of the preps after taking down the strongest guy, prompting some more amazing dialogue from Darby.
You disgust me! It takes more than victory to become a champion. It takes breeding and nepotism and snobbery. You filthy Democrat!
Following this is a true final mission, Dishonorable Fight. Jimmy exits the ring and gets rushed by the preps. We'll move over to this wooden stool, which has a high chance of dropping a wooden plank when broken. If we don't get one right away, we'll need to break another stool for a second chance, but if we still don't get one, it can easily result in a reset. Once we have a plank in hand, we can head upstairs to face off against Darby. Right after the fight starts, we'll want to switch to the Slingshot and hit the nearby prep with the charged shot, taking him out instantly. We'll then block the door to prevent more preppies from spawning. The priority at this point is doing damage to Darby with fully charged attacks, but if he's on the ground, we can take out the other prep in the meantime, as all enemies in this area need to be defeated to progress, not just Darby. We should be able to beat Darby with the plank never getting destroyed, making for a relatively easy fight. With Darby and all the other preppies taken care of, Jimmy now has them under control, and we're on to Chapter 3. The chapter opens up with Petey and Jimmy throwing darts. A greaser appears, interrupting them requesting help for his friend Johnny. Jimmy doesn't sound too interested in helping, but Pete explains Johnny is the leader of the greasers, and it could be good to get close to him to get back at Gary. Back to the speedrun, we'll immediately go make some firecrackers, and then save the game to set up DDM. Afterwards, we'll reload back to the speedrun save, and immediately take damage using a firecracker. We'll then head to the school. Similar to Carnival date in Chapter 2, the beginning of Chapter 3 is also time-gated up till the mission Miracle on Bulworth Street. This is because the first thing we're going to do is time warp by going to class. Except this time we can take advantage of a glitch to exit out of biology early and warp halfway across the map. After letting the bell ring for a bit, we'll throw a firecracker and knock out Jimmy just as a marker in front of the door appears. Some runners suggest pressing interact right when the knocked out text appears, and others wait until close to the end of the fade out. But all I can say for sure is that no matter how I do this, it is still inconsistent. By entering biology the same time Jimmy is knocked out, not only fails the class, skipping it entirely, but I guess fainting in the classroom doesn't count as fainting in the school, since you're normally not able to die during classes. As a result, the game respawns us at a hospital downtown instead of the school infirmary. Even though we've successfully warped time forward to 11:30, it's still too early to start the missions we want to do, so we're going to head over to the Carnival to advance time even further. Personally, I prefer to use the bike in this section because skating on the snow is a massive pain. But I do recognize we probably don't make enough use out of the bike to rationalize doing so, since we'll just dump it at the Carnival entrance, but oh well, it's still more consistent for me. After arriving at the Carnival, you already know it's go-kart time. This time, however, we'll be entering the go-kart track 4 times in total, advancing time forward 4 hours. Afterwards, we'll purposely get busted by police to warp back to the downtown area. Just south of the police station is a bike we can use to head over to the next mission, Balls of Snow. In this mission, Jimmy stumbles across Rudy, the town drunk that believes he's Santa Claus. Jimmy takes pity on the poor guy, as the local townies have been harassing him, so we'll hide up from a vantage point to pelt 10 of them with snowballs. The townies that spawn in far away on bikes can be a bit trickier to hit, so I'll use the setup by throwing snowballs in between these 2 trees as they ride in to take them out. Once the last townie is pelted, the mission is complete. Next, we'll go pick our bike back up and head to the mission marker for Miracle on Bulwer Street. On the way, we can stop by any shop to enter and exit to refresh the items on the game world, like these firecrackers, and we'll pick them up to use for later. None of this should matter for top runners, as the marker for the next mission won't appear until a bit past 6 PM, so if we're early enough to wait for it, no time is lost. For this mission, we bump into Rudy again while he's taking a piss in a back alley. Rudy is upset about a new Santa Claus that's set up in town, stealing all of his business. If we can shut them down, then he'll let us in on some of his profits. This mission is extremely easy. We'll just head down the street to this big display and throw 2 firecrackers at the castle walls to take it down quickly. I like riding the bike here because we can equip the firecrackers ahead of time, so right after hopping off, we can begin throwing them. After passing the mission, we'll head over to the bus stop to transport back to school. Normally you have to wait to move when the bus drops Jimmy off, but because of the mission pass text being on screen when we get on the bus, the game allows us to move instantly. At this point, we'll head back to the dorm and go to sleep to progress the game time to Christmas. After waking up, we'll head outside and alert a nearby prefect to transport us to the principal's office. This is perfect, as the office was exactly where we needed to stop at to grab a reindeer sweater Jimmy's mom sent him. While this mission is sort of pointless, it is necessary to complete before being able to complete any other missions. Next, we'll head downstairs and start the mission Nutcrackin'. Miss Peters spots Jimmy walking through the hallways, reminding him that today is the day of the Christmas pageant, but their lead percussionist has appendicitis. You can probably see where this is going, but Jimmy isn't interested in helping out. She threatens to fail him if he doesn't help, so he's left no choice but to shut up and play some drums. This mission is easily the worst in the entire game, especially from a speedrunning standpoint. This is a simple rhythm game, where we slowly play through different Christmas songs, which already isn't very interesting, but this whole segment lasts for 3 minutes. Once I get myself a bit over 75%, I stop playing because at that point my percentage won't drop below 65%, which is all that's needed to complete the mission. Also, since Jimmy woke up, we are again in another situation where missions are time gated, and we need to advance time forward again to start the next mission, Rudy the Red-Nosed Santa. So for one last time in the speedrun, we're going to head back down to the Carnival and fail the go-kart races 2 times. Then we get caught by police and head back downtown. We'll once again grab the free bike spawn, as it's a bit quicker to grab compared to our bike in the garage, and we only need to use the bike for this mission anyways. We'll then set up our bike in the alleyway and wait for the mission marker to appear. Everything done beyond this point will count towards time in Chapter 3, so no more time-gated missions for a while. For this mission, Rudy has set up his own Santa's workshop in the back alley, and even though I personally think it looks perfect, we will need to scour the area for more items. To do this, we'll grab the bike and pick up the items in a specific order. The key here is not going too fast into any walls or objects so that the bike gently bumps alongside them. Once all 5 items are collected, we just ride back to the alleyway straight into Rudy. Next, we'll have to take Christmas pictures of the kids and time the photos when they're smiling. There's no luck involved here, and our animations are always the same. Once completed, we'll hop over the fence, as we're very close to the mission that was alluded to at the beginning of the chapter, Jealous Johnny. Johnny is worried that his girlfriend Lola isn't faithful, so he requests that Jimmy follows her around and collects evidence of her cheating. This mission is almost entirely luck-based, depending on where Gord and Lola are located relative to the bridge where Johnny's at. No matter what luck we get here, the game plan is the same. Get one picture of them walking together, another of Gord giving her flowers, and then a final picture that will be taken in an alleyway of them kissing. Flower and kissing animations, we only need to photograph the very start of the animations, and once the game gives us a green light, we can go back to Johnny. Following this, we can immediately begin the next mission under the bridge, called Bait. In this mission, Johnny is devastated about Lola and lashes out at Jimmy over it. Jimmy manages to calm him down a bit, and they devise a plan to get back at Gord. We can find Gord downtown and shoot him from pretty far away with the slingshot before he gets around the corner. Then a chase will begin between Jimmy and the preps as we lure Gord to the bike park in New Coventry. Once in the park, Johnny will confront Gord, and a fight ensues between the two parties. I like to handle this fight by hopping off the bike and trying to throw the preps off theirs. If none are close by, then the strategy switches to using the slingshot to shoot at them until they fall off their bikes. Once on the ground, we can shoot them once, and then prepare for a headshot once they're up to finish them off. Once the third prep is dealt with, we'll pass the mission. During the mission pass screen, we'll want to check the background for any bikes, and if one isn't there, we'll need to find one in a different spot. Normally in this park, you can use a garage door to transport bikes from the inside to the outside and vice versa. But by hopping off a bike as the door opens and leaving it inside allows us to set up for a powerful glitch later on. We'll then want to exit the door while hugging the left side wall and head back to the school using the bus stop. From here, we'll stop at the library to start the mission, wrong part of town. For this mission, we're flagged down by Errands, who exclaims that Johnny is looking for Algie because he believes he's been flirting with Lola. So we need to find and secure Algie before Johnny and his greaser friends get to him first. Algie's friend Cornelius knows where to find him. We intercept him being harassed by greasers who were led to him by Gary. 2 greasers are left behind, so we take them out and then head to the pizza shop in New Coventry to save Algie. Remember that bike we set up earlier in the bike park? Well, if we head over to the garage at the school and hop on our bike, the game will glitch and warp us all the way over to the bike park, conveniently right down the road from Algie. Once Algie's in view, we can shoot him with a slingshot to trigger the cutscene a bit sooner. Here we see Lola trying to schmooze $100 from a prep named Chad, unveiling her true intentions. Either way, we don't want Algie to be spotted with Lola, so we grab the bikes and head out. The greasers notice Algie on Lola's bike on the way out, and a chase ensues. This next section is entirely an autoscroller, and we'll need to wait it out. But we can't just sit back and relax though, because Johnny's lackeys will be chasing us down the entire time. As long as we keep up with shooting the greasers off their bikes quickly, we should be fine. But I have died during this section before, so it's definitely not impossible to happen. The greasers will continue chasing the trio until we arrive at the school. After returning to the nerds, the mission will be complete. This is the last time we'll be close to the dorm before finishing the chapter, so we'll stop by to deactivate DDM, and also pick up some eggs. After saving, instead of reloading the DDM save file, we can instead use a new arcade cabinet located in the boys' dorm, but it doesn't really make much of a difference, assuming we already saved. Next, we'll head out, grab our bike from the garage, and head to the preppies' dorm. Jimmy continues to assert that he's the leader of the preps to their faces. Darby uses this to convince Jimmy into helping Gord get back at the greasers if he really is their leader, even though it was Jimmy who jumped Gord in the first place. Either way, we're not really friends with the greasers anymore anyways, so the plan is to head to their territory in New Coventry and tag their turf, showing them who's boss. While heading to the first tag, we'll want to be careful not to hit any pedestrians because police involvement can make this mission a real mess if they catch Jimmy while tagging. Are you serious? What?
Damn, I'm good.
Is my bike still there? No, it got robbed. Once the first tag is in sight, we can flick the camera backwards to despawn any greasers because they will steal Jimmy's bike if they have the chance. Afterwards, we'll need to tag 5 more spots in New Coventry to finish the mission. Before doing so, we'll stop at the mark to fill up on paint and then head to this location, picking up the nearby firecrackers if necessary. It doesn't really matter where we get firecrackers from, just as long as we are maxed out on them by the time we reach the next boss fight. For some reason, when this game is played in 16:9, a strange glitch occurs where tags are removed instantly after being sprayed. This is pretty useful as we can stay at one location for all 5 tags. Once the 5th tag is sprayed, the mission is complete. Next, we'll ride down the street to the mission, Lola's Race. In this mission, Lola can be seen trying to reconcile with Johnny, but he's not having it. Jimmy appears and Lola instigates a race between them for her entertainment. This is thankfully the last bike race of the speedrun, so I'll only need to destroy my hands in the name of going fast one more time. We do need to be careful here, as the ground is still snowy, so it can be easy to lose traction and swerve out of control. Throughout this race, there are a few shortcuts we can use, up until the greasers begin to drop trees on the path. But we can just drive over these, and once we get close to the end, we can cut some corners. We'll want to leave the bike somewhere near the finish line, so it doesn't get repositioned, because we will need it for the upcoming section. After winning the race, Lola begins to like Jimmy and gives him a kiss. We'll then head back to the bridge and leave the bike near the drain to pick it up quickly after starting the next mission. For the next mission in the Tenements, Lola is upset about the greasers cutting her out of their clique for kissing Jimmy, but many of her belongings are still located at their hideout in the abandoned apartments in the bad part of town. Without much coercion, she convinces Jimmy to help collect her things, so we head out to the hideout. After heading in, we'll climb up the first set of stairs and get roadblocked by the missing floor. We'll head around the outside, go up the next set of stairs, and grab our laundry, taking out any greasers along the way. This triggers a battle between Jimmy and Norton, who wields a massive hammer. Ideally, we'll run up to Norton to keep him close to the door long enough for either his hammer swings or Jimmy's firecrackers to break open the door, so we don't have to later. Even if we do break open the door early, we will still need to defeat Norton for his hammer. After running out of firecrackers, Jimmy can search nearby boxes and ideally get more firecrackers, or at the very least grab a plank of wood. If we get a plank of wood, we can use it in between attacks, since Norton will always be out of breath after each swing. Ideally, he'll slam on the ground, allowing us to get 3 attacks in instead of only 1. Following this fight, we'll grab his hammer and make our way back through the tenements, collecting Lola's belongings. Once we break open the second wall, we can drop the hammer and use the skateboard to move faster with precise movement. On the way back to Lola, we'll want to stock up on firecrackers and spray paint, both of which can be found along the way to her, as this will be our last opportunity to do so. After returning our belongings, we'll be rewarded with another kiss, and we can move on to the final mission of Chapter 3, the Rumble. Lola doesn't feel like Jimmy does enough for her, and wants him to literally fight for her. She's already manipulated Johnny and Gord to convince their factions to fight for her affection. But Jimmy isn't interested, and would rather put an end to the whole dilemma. We'll begin chasing Peanut around town until we arrive at an alleyway where we get jumped by a group of greasers. Peanut has a lot of health for this fight, so we'll want to prioritize firecracker throws towards him, while making sure we at least hit each of the other greasers once. Jimmy will begin goading the greasers after defeating them until he's confronted by Johnny, who punches him in the face. Shortly afterwards, the police appear and begin chasing Jimmy down an alleyway until he eventually loses them. Jimmy's bike gets tripped, and he lands in a junkyard surrounded by greasers. PD appears out of nowhere, providing assistance to Jimmy as he clears a perimeter of greasers. Once each greaser is taken care of, we can top off our health, or just shoot Johnny with the slingshot until he drives under the magnet, stripping him of his bike. We'll want to repeat a pattern of spraying Johnny in the eyes and hitting him with a 3-piece combo. Each rotation, we'll want to make sure to wait a second before spraying and step back a bit just in case Johnny tries to hit Jimmy. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Rinse and repeat until he's out of health. An interesting strat that wasn't found until later on was that when Johnny's health gets low enough to be humiliated, we can throw an egg at him to finish him off quickly, saving a couple of seconds, which is why we grabbed the eggs earlier. Johnny admits defeat and tells Jimmy he can have Lola. Jimmy explains that he didn't fight him to win her, but to prove he's tougher than them, and that he's the boss of the greasers now, thus concluding Chapter 3. Now, after having an alliance with the bullies and becoming the de facto leader of both the preps and the greasers, you would think Jimmy has enough control over the whole school, but the jocks are still at the top of the totem pole. To start off this chapter, Jimmy reveals that he's still being insistently harassed by Gary, who has continued spreading rumors about him. Following a confrontation with some jocks, Jimmy decides to make them his new target. We'll then head over to the library to recruit the nerds to help us in taking over the jocks. However, none of the nerds are interested in helping Jimmy, since he only helps them out when he wants something in return, so we'll need to get to the leader of the nerds, Ernest, by force. During the fade-in, I'll hold up and left to instantly move towards the secret entrance to their base. Normally you need to beat up the nerds to get the location of their hideout, but the entrance is always available from the start. We'll then need to get the key code from security at the front door by shooting them right when the dialogue ends and open the door. Along the way, we'll pick up some stink bombs and firecrackers while shooting nerds out of the way on the path. When approaching this hill, it's smart to throw a stink bomb ahead to prevent the nerds from blocking the path. Also, one thing that's unique about Chapter 4 is that we never activate DDM for the entire chapter. This is because setting it up takes more time than it would save, so we don't even bother. Once we reach the observatory, we'll spot Ernest manning the spud cannon. We'll headshot the 2 nerds in the back, and then find a nice spot behind the rock to shoot the light out. Even if your aim is perfect, I believe you can only hit this light when the cursor turns red. Afterwards, we'll top off our health, take out 2 more guards, and take control over the spud gun. Before doing so, we'll want to throw a stink bomb at the spot in the building to make sure the top row nerds never come out to throw projectiles at Jimmy. Then I like to switch back to the slingshot so we have it out for the next section, and then hop on the gun. In the background you'll notice I disable controller, switch to mouse, move the gun into position, and then switch back to the controller. I'm assuming the reason this is allowed in runs is because even after taking all precautions, it's still possible to die here, which is completely out of the runner's control, so I don't blame anyone for trying to play it as safely as possible. Getting past this door is the most brutal part of the speedrun, and due to how inconsistent it was, it took me around 30 hours of attempts just to get past chapter 4. Once the door is destroyed, we'll head inside. Jimmy will attempt to reason with Ernest, but there's no getting through to him without a fight. If you remember earlier, you can shoot the slingshot a lot faster when Jimmy is crouched, so we'll abuse this here to get through each cycle before Ernest is able to attack. Sometimes he can get a hit off even if you're spamming really fast, but the strategy will work most of the time. After defeating Ernest, Jimmy reminds him that they both want to get back at the jocks, so he should reconsider helping him. He agrees and a new alliance is formed. Also, for completing this mission, we're awarded the spud gun, which is a really powerful weapon. The observatory is pretty far away from the rest of the school, so here we'll damage abuse to go to the infirmary. From here we'll head inside the library and start the mission Funhouse Fun. This is our first mission where we'll be messing with the jocks with the help from the nerds. The nerds are set up in the funhouse at the carnival since the jocks plan on hanging out there tonight. After arriving, it would appear things aren't going to plan as the nerds are getting beat up by the jocks, but single shots with a spud gun is all that's needed to take them out. The 2 nerds, Bucky and Fatty, explain that the jocks have taken over and they want to get out of there as quickly as possible. We'll begin escorting them out by pulling this book and heading up the ladder. We'll exit out of a coffin and we'll have to jump over each of these sites to avoid getting hit. Once inside the control room, you're normally supposed to control the sites to take out the jocks, but if you lock on and throw firecrackers, it turns out Jimmy is loaded in right next to each of the jocks, and we can beat all 3 of them instantly. The game will glitch out a little, but afterwards we're able to progress. Next we'll enter a maze where Bucky and Fatty have both gotten themselves stuck. We'll need to open the doors for each and walk next to them to get each nerd to follow. Sometimes I run through this area rather than skate because we have to wait for Bucky to catch up before we open the next door, or else he'll get trapped. Upon exiting, the nerd's path will be blocked by some minor animatronics that are being controlled by the jocks. We'll head up the ladder and use the spud gun to take out each jock. After all the miners are deactivated, we're good to drop down and head to the next room. In this room, the nerds are stuck in a daze looking at the funhouse mirrors, and all we have to do is walk into each of their spaces and exit through the back door of the funhouse. After claiming our reward, we'll get caught by police and then head to the garage to pick up our bike. Next, we'll ride the bike back to the dorm, leave it outside, and get a good night's sleep. Upon waking up, we'll head over to the observatory for the next nerd mission. For this mission, Ernest has a plan for getting back at the jocks. He wants lewd pictures of the head cheerleader Mandy. You know, to get back at the jocks. Sadly, Jimmy can be convinced into anything, so we take our bike and head to the gym to get our initial photographs. By entering the gym with the camera equipped, turning slightly upright towards the cheerleaders, and pressing the right trigger, most of the time we can get a quick, acceptable picture. Then we'll leave the gym and head to the girls' dorm. Along the way, we can stop at the parking lot and grab some marbles by the bus to be used later. After entering the girls' dorm, we'll need to make sure to avoid Miss Peabody, but thankfully she's always on a set cycle. If we shoot out these 2 chairs, she'll be alerted and head downstairs. Once we see her pass by, we can go upstairs and finish the remainder of the mission undetected. In the bathroom, we'll need to take a picture of Mandy in the shower, and then another picture of her getting changed. The game is picky when it comes to which photographs are accepted, so we'll have to be careful and take our time. But not too long, otherwise I'm pretty sure you get put on a list. Then we'll head to the library to deliver the pictures to Ernest. Upon reaching the observatory, we'll want to leave the bike in the grass over here rather than near the gate. We'll then head inside and start the mission Defender of the Castle. It seems like Ernest's plan to get back at the jocks is working. They're pissed about the pictures and are currently en route to storm the observatory. Since Jimmy destroyed the defense system, the nerds are left with no choice but to evacuate. Jimmy steps up and offers to hold off the jocks while Ernest repairs the system. Upon exiting the observatory, we can grab the bike and head to the barricade where the nerds are fending off the jocks. We'll want to ram the bike right into the barricade and then turn around when the health bar turns red, which allows us to move the jocks forward earlier. Ernest will tell us to use a spud cannon to deal with the jocks, but it's much easier to jump down and headshot them all instead. There will be 15 jocks in total, 3 of which don't have any equipment on. The jocks with no equipment won't storm the observatory, but they will slingshot Jimmy, canceling his aim, so they are of equal importance to take out. we'll want to keep count of each jock as they're taken out and stand over a baseball bat when we get close to finishing the mission. Once we hit all 15 jocks, we can quickly pick up the baseball bat before the mission ends, which is something I am not very good at. In the mission Nice outfit, Ernest has devised a plan to get back at the football team. But in order to do so, we'll need to get a hold of the school mascot uniform. We'll head outside and grab the bike to head over to the football field so we can carry the bat with us on the way over there. If we didn't manage to grab a bat, there is one located on the field. Once we spot the mascot, we'll want to catch him standing still and then throw marbles under his feet. This will cause his meter to jump straight to full, and we'll want to quickly pick up the bat before the next cutscene activates. Jimmy will lure the mascot and jocks over to the pool side of the gym where the remaining jocks get ambushed by the nerds, leaving Jimmy to fight the mascot 1v1. This fight is sort of tough, but it becomes a lot easier with the bat in hand. We'll want to use strong hits to knock the mascot onto the ground, and then time and space grounded bat swings for additional damage. Once the bat breaks, we'll have to do the remaining damage with punches, followed by a slingshot hit to combat the mascot. This isn't as good as the spray can strategy, but it works well enough. Just don't be surprised if the mascot gets a nut shot in. Once he's low enough health, we can humiliate the mascot, or apparently just throw an egg at him to deal the final blow. After passing this mission, we'll now be wearing the mascot outfit for the remainder of Chapter 4. Following this mission, we'll exit outside the gym, and then head back inside from the gymnasium portion, and start the next mission, Discretion Assured. In this mission, Jimmy bumps into Mandy, who has had posters of her pictures posted all around town. She's really upset, and Jimmy begins to feel bad, as she seems mostly undeserving of the treatment she's getting, so he offers to go cover up the posters for her. We'll head outside and cover the first poster located behind the school, and the next one by the library. Next, we'll head downtown to cover the remaining posters. But before doing so, stop by the boys' dorm for a can of spray paint, so we won't need to stop at the store. The next poster is located by the movie theater. The second to last poster is located on the side of the comic book store, but when we attempt covering it up, the two NPCs standing nearby will attack Jimmy, so we'll interact with the poster once, cancel out of it, run into the comic book shop, and then after another attempt, the NPCs won't aggro Jimmy when he paints over it. Finally, we'll head down to Town Hall to cover the last poster. We can then return to the boys' dorm, where Mandy can be found waiting for Jimmy, adding another girl to Jimmy's harem. Following this mission, we now have all the requirements for the final mission of this chapter, the big game. We'll start this mission over by the observatory to execute a plan with the nerds to ruin the football game. After heading outside, we'll have a new ability with the mascot outfit to do a cow dance to get the jocks to leave us alone. This being the only time we're required to use it to get through the gate. We'll then head over to the bleachers and begin completing the nerds' tasks. The first task is to swap a rigged football with explosives for the game ball. Easy enough. Next, we'll get a glue bottle to glue each of the benches on the field. There's a pretty cool tech we can do here where we drop marbles under Jimmy as he glues each bench to skip the animation, saving a little bit of time. Next, we'll get some marbles to spread across the field. It's possible to clear 2 of the yellow markers here with 1 marble throw, but it doesn't change too much whether we get it or not. Algie will then have us pee in the jock's cooler. To do this, it's faster to enter the gym from the pool side, because for some reason the jocks won't chase us on this side when we come into view, and we won't have to deal with them. We just have to make sure their vision on the minimap gets disabled before proceeding. After peeing in the cooler, we only have one task left to go, which is to change the text on the scoreboard. All we need to do for this task is run across a football field and interact with the switch box. At this point, the jocks are fed up with Jimmy and confront him. We'll now face off against the entire football team that's defending the quarterback, Ted. Ted will throw footballs at Jimmy, and we'll need to pick them up and throw them at the defenders. Since these balls are rigged with explosives, it takes each of them out pretty quickly. For some reason, the defender in the front will take 2 footballs to defeat, unless we throw the ball while being extremely close to them. After completing each phase, an additional jock will storm the field, following Jimmy around trying to tackle him. So we'll need to not only avoid them, but also try to stop them from getting hit with flying footballs. Anyways, once all 3 phases are complete, we'll begin chasing down Ted, who only needs a single punch to defeat. Jimmy and Pete rejoice as they've successfully defeated the jocks and publicly humiliated them in front of the school, boosting their social stature. Heading into Chapter 5, Jimmy is now the king of the school. He can be seen hanging out with the previous faction leaders as he's showered in admiration by everyone that walks by. It all seems to be going to Jimmy's head, but Pete reminds him that not everybody likes him, and Gary is still out there plotting on his downfall. After the chapter starts, the clock will be reset, and we have a bit of time to goof around while waiting for class to start. During this time, we can save in the principal's office to activate DDM, and then wait outside of the art class until the marker appears. We'll attend class and quit out to advance the game's clock forward. From here, I'll exit the school from the back door and go grab the bike plus the marbles from behind the school bus. In theory, we could have just grabbed both of these while waiting for Art 1 to start, but no items are loaded into the game world upon starting a new chapter, and you first have to enter and exit the school to do so, which takes too much time. The bike isn't necessary to use right now, but again, I do prefer to use it since my skateboard movement isn't always optimal. I'll place the bike right outside the infirmary since we don't need to use it right now, and then head to the boys' dorm. Jimmy continues to be praised by his peers. Pete has something on his mind he wants to tell Jimmy, but he can't seem to get a word out and gets ignored altogether. The others convince Jimmy to continue stroking his ego and leave his mark on City Hall, so we head down there to spray paint it. Nothing too interesting happens here, we'll just climb up some ladders, and once at the top, spray paint the building 3 times. On the way down we can take some fall damage, but the final drop is a bit too steep to fall down. To get around this, we can equip the skateboard just before falling, and then unequip it upon landing to avoid dying. We'll then take a picture of the tag in front of City Hall and head back to the dorm. Somehow in just a few hours we were gone, things at the school have begun falling apart. Jimmy is a bit confused about what could be happening, so we'll look around to investigate. Before leaving, we'll want to make some firecrackers and then head to the library. The library is infested with rats, and for some reason the nerds are blaming Jimmy. It doesn't really make sense, but Jimmy being Jimmy, he offers to help out. This is where the marbles we picked up earlier come into play. Each runner has different spots they like to leave marbles, and I kind of like to wing it so I can spend more time killing them manually because there's a ton of RNG involved here with their movements. The most important spot to drop them is in the corner by this table because a majority of the rats like to get trapped here. Once the last rat is cleared, the mission is passed. Next we'll head towards the gym and hit the mission marker in the path in front of it. Jimmy nonchalantly passes by the gym, not even noticing the entire building is on fire. The gym teacher, Mr. Burton, plans on telling the police Jimmy started the fire without any evidence. Meanwhile, there are a few individuals still stuck in the gym, so Jimmy heads in to save them. We'll grab the fire extinguisher off the wall and begin taking out the fires. We'll want to avoid standing too close to the fires, or Jimmy will begin coughing up smoke, wasting time. The easiest way to tell what's happening is when Jimmy is in range, he'll look down at the flames. Once the flames are fully out, he'll look up. Along the way, we'll entrap the 2 students. Afterwards, we'll spot Mandy, who saw somebody downstairs that she believed to have started the fire. Jimmy will find the pyromaniac downstairs, he tackles Jimmy to the ground, and that's the end of the mission. Afterwards, we should still be at pretty low health from dropping down City Hall, so we can use a firecracker to death warp to the infirmary. Next, I'll grab the bike left lying around here and go to the bridge by New Coventry. In the next mission, finding Johnny and Vincent, we learn that Johnny has been kidnapped and transported to an insane asylum across town. We'll travel through New Coventry and head through the newly unlocked industrial area. After reaching the asylum, we'll need to gain entry inside by traveling behind the building. This is why the bike is so useful to have here. Once reaching the back, we'll find a tree hanging over the fence and use it to gain entry. Upon entering, we'll need to avoid being spotted by the guards. From the moment we walk in, there is no luck involved with this area, as the guards will always be on a set cycle. At the start, we'll walk slightly forward while remaining crouched, and then rush forward towards the next door. We'll want to wait by the next door until the blue marker is fully exposed before passing through. From here, we'll need to jump over these boxes without breaking them, and then enter the next door while facing in this direction. For some reason, any other angle will most likely get Jimmy caught by the guard in that room. We'll then wait for a worker to storm through the doors and follow through after them. After finding Johnny, he'll tell us to go through the laundry room to find an employee uniform and gain access to the control room. We'll have to wait a bit for this guard to not be blocking the door, and during this time we can take a bit of firecracker damage using the wall. Afterwards, we'll run past the 2 guards and grab the laundry. Next, we'll run back through from where we came until we reach the control panel. We won't be able to be detected with the uniform on. Once the doors are released, we'll scoop up Johnny and skateboard down this hallway. While on the skateboard, Jimmy will continue to move forward during this brief cutaway, landing him directly in front of the gate. Now all we need to do is run through the rest of the asylum and exit out the back. Johnny thanks Jimmy for his help. He explains the reason he was in there was because some of the townies claimed to have hooked up with Lola, and they began teasing him over it. Johnny apparently went crazy, and as a result, the townies somehow got him admitted to an insane asylum. Anyways, next we'll use the insane asylum sign to death warp. Since we're still considered to be in the industrial park, we'll spawn over by this house instead of the hospital, conveniently placed right next to the next mission marker. In the mission Revenge on Mr. Burton, we're introduced to Jimmy's next love interest, Zoe. She tells him that she used to go to Bullworth, but got kicked out for reasons involving Mr. Burton being a creep. This motivates Jimmy even further into trying to get back at him. Zoe informs him that Burton goes jogging every day near the park, and if we could catch him off guard in one of the porta potties, we could mess up his whole day. From the park, we'll use a nearby bus stop to get transported to the school, as it's a bit faster to reach downtown this way. Once in town, we'll grab the bike and some bolt cutters, and then make our way to the park. The plan is to destroy every porta potty except for the one on the top of the hill, so he's forced to use it, and then push him off the cliff. The bike is really useful here since we can throw firecrackers at the porta potties while riding. Once all the porta potties are destroyed, we can head back to Zoe to execute the plan. Burden will enter the porta potty, she'll cut the wires, and we'll drive him off the cliff. Next, we'll head over to the boxing club to start the mission Preppies Vandalize. In this mission, the Preps boxing trophies are missing, and they're heading over to beat up the greasers for it, despite not having any evidence. Jimmy isn't as convinced, and offers to talk to the greasers about it for them. Then we'll ride all the way from Old Woolworthville to New Coventry, making use of the same dirt path we rode on during Lola's race. Eventually we'll catch up to the greasers, who say they aren't even interested in messing with the Preps at the moment, as their main focus is getting back at the Townies for what they did to Johnny. At this point, the Townies seem pretty suspicious, so Jimmy heads to a shipping warehouse in the industrial park where the Townies are hanging out at. Jimmy overhears some of the Townies talking about a party on the dock, and he snaps a picture of them. After escaping, we'll head over to the docks. At the docks, a pile of trophies can be seen with the Townies dumping gasoline on them and lighting them on fire. We'll snap a pic of the fire and Townies in the background, and then head back to the Preps. Jimmy has connected the dots. The Townies are being controlled by Gary and have been responsible for the rats in the library, the fire in the gym, admitting Johnny to the asylum, and now this. The Preps ignore Jimmy as they don't believe him about Gary and don't even bother looking at the photographs. Next, we'll head back to the school to grab our bike and then head to the boys' dorm. One thing I failed to mention is that everything that's happened since the beginning of Chapter 5 has all been time gated due to the clock. Assuming speedrunners are fast enough, they should be able to reach the boys' dorm before 7 p.m., which is the earliest time you can go to bed. After falling asleep, a new mission marker appears by the principal's office called Go See the Principal. Per usual, we can use a nearby prefect to warp there immediately. During this cutscene, we learn that the principal has had enough of Jimmy's antics and is officially expelling him from campus. The final straw was being tipped off by Gary that Jimmy was the one who graffitied the town hall. Despite his objections, Jimmy is expelled, only allowed to stay in the dorm room until they contact his mother. Following this, we'll be force transported back to the dorm. On our way out, we'll want to grab the spud gun since our weapons just got confiscated by the prefect. The next mission marker is placed right outside the dorm to start busting in Part 1. Jimmy is frustrated that Gary has gotten the upper hand over him. Gary got him expelled, and now everyone at the school both hates him and isn't afraid of him anymore. Even Algie. Pete doesn't want to give up, and thinks before Jimmy is forced to leave, they should get back at the Townies for everything that they've done. Russell is probably the only person who doesn't hate Jimmy, so we'll head over to his house near the park to recruit him. After getting there, Russell agrees to help us, just as long as he's allowed to destroy things. The duo rides together all the way from Old Woolworthville to the industrial park. Russell is rubber banding during this trip, so we can get as far ahead of him as we like, as long as we stick to the set path. I'll also pick up some firecrackers on the way to the park. Once there, we can ditch the bike and head into the load trigger. The gate ahead is blocked, so Russell crashes his stolen police bike right through it, causing a massive explosion. Jimmy explains to Zoe that he needs to talk to Edgar, the leader of the Townies. However, she explains that he's not even able to get inside the plant right now because the power is down, so we'll need to flip some switches to restore it. We'll start out by headshotting these two Townies, flipping the first switch, and then shooting one of the other Townies from the other side. We shouldn't need to clear both of them, as one is easy to avoid. After pressing the second switch, we'll pick up some bottle rockets and head to the chem plant. Here we can execute a pretty cool glitch. After running past this corner, a Townie will spawn in and begin chasing Jimmy. If we lure him over to this trash can, grab him from a crouched position, and then throw him into the trash, Jimmy will gain the ability to airwalk. This allows us to skip a small section moving the trains, and instead we can just fly right over them. You would think a powerful glitch like this would see more use throughout the speedrun, but there aren't many places it would be useful due to the setup time and because running is way slower than skating. After opening the remainder gates, Zoe will distract the Townies on the ground floor, allowing Jimmy to scale the plant. After reaching the top, we'll be stopped by some Townies blocking the entrance. To get the key inside, we'll need to take out the middle Townie, Omar, who has a massive health bar requiring multiple headshots to take down. Once he's down, we can grab the key to head inside, ignoring the remaining Townies. Once inside the plant, we'll make our way downstairs where we see Edgar heading down an elevator. We'll rush downstairs and make use of a few exploits like jumping through the crawling section. We can also use the skateboard exploit again to drop through the bottom floor while avoiding fall damage. It doesn't really matter how we get downstairs just as long as we get there before Edgar. The rest of the time will be spent waiting. Once he shows up, he'll pull a pipe off the wall and use it as a weapon, while Jimmy finds a metal plate to use as a shield. We'll rush towards Edgar, jumping around him to avoid his first attack. This will make him lose his breath, giving Jimmy time to hit him. We'll want to do 7 strong attacks in a row to keep him stun locked. Once his health bar reaches yellow, he'll run away to head downstairs. Normally a steam wall will prevent Jimmy from moving forward, but by going into first person mode and facing the left side of the door allows him to bypass the steam wall. This allows speedrunners to hit the load trigger blow much earlier. Not only does this save time, but it activates the fight before Edgar has the opportunity to grab the pipe off the wall. The AI here is expecting to have that pipe, so without it, it's pretty much useless, and we can finish the fight easily with no issues. Just before the fade out, we'll use a firecracker to deal a bit of damage to Jimmy, assuming he still has a large amount of health left. After the fight, Jimmy learns that Gary put Edgar up to all of this, giving him the same promises as Jimmy that they would take over the school. Jimmy explains his side, and Edgar agrees to help him get back at Gary. Following the mission pass screen, we'll throw a firecracker to Death Warp near Zoe's house to start the next mission, Complete Mayhem. Zoe isn't happy to see Jimmy, because the school is in an all-out war with each other, with all the cliques butting heads against one another. Jimmy wants to go to the school right away, but he can't without some backup. So first we head through the nearby meat factory we left Russell at to rescue him from the police. Once we find Russell in the warehouse, we'll make our way back outside and run from the police. Russell somehow ends up ahead of us and pulls Jimmy to the side. The duo then heads to the school. At Bulworth, Edgar and some of the townies meet up with us at the front gate. Russell helps us break in, and we'll quickly grab the bike to deal with each clique leader while the townies try to stop the fights going on outside. Our first stop is a gym which is being controlled by the nerds. They are easily taken out with a single firecracker. Next we'll stop by the Preppy's dorm where we find Darby hiding while madness ensues in the schoolyard. For this fight we'll shoot Darby with a spud gun, followed by 2 bottle rockets, and 1 last spud gun shot. The remaining preps can be taken out with bottle rockets. Next up we'll head to the library which has been infiltrated by the jocks. Here we'll use the spud gun shots chained with punches to continually stun lock the 2 jocks. The final jock wearing the hat only requires a single bottle rocket to take out. Finally we'll head to the girls' dorm where the greasers have taken over and trashed the whole building. Johnny can be quickly taken out with a couple bottle rocket shots. If there are any spud gun shots remaining, we can choose to use them since it is a bit stronger than the rockets. Once the greasers are taken care of, we'll head outside and go into the school to meet up with Edgar. Next begins a final face-off against Gary. Jimmy will get tackled by prefects and all his weapons get confiscated. Russell scares them off, and then Gary can be seen on the front staircase, goading Jimmy to chase him outside. In the next cutscene, Gary begins bragging about how he tricked everyone and was essentially controlling Jimmy the entire time. Jimmy, however, doesn't really care and wants to finish this fight hand to hand. We'll have to run around this area on support beams, evading Gary's bricks. We have a couple of options here, like waiting out bricks before crossing, and we can also jump across a big portion of the support beam to get across quicker. It is possible to dodge the bricks while on the support beam, but you don't have a lot of room to work with, so there's a lot of times you'll probably just get hit anyways. After making it across, there'll be a few ladders needed to be climbed to reach the top of the school. After reaching the final staircase, we can jump around most of the bells and run straight to Gary. Gary goes off on an unhinged rant about his victory over Jimmy, but Jimmy gets sent over the top after the final insult to his mother. The final fight for this run is rather hilarious, because if we spam jump before falling down, we can avoid Jimmy falling on the ground and grab Gary right away. By grabbing Gary on the ground and continually punching him in the face, he'll be locked in place for the remainder of the fight. If anything, after everything we've been through, this is easily the most satisfying way to end the game. In the following cutscene, Gary is dropped through the ceiling of the principal's office where Crabble Cinch is found tied up. After overhearing their entire conversation, he expels Gary on the spot and thanks Jimmy for saving the school. Jimmy credits Zoe for helping and gets her readmitted to the academy, as well as gets Mr. Burton fired. He makes Pete the head of the school, and Crabble Cinch tosses out the letter to his mother. And yeah, that's pretty much the game. One thing I do want to point out is that most of the Chapter 5 from the run you just watched was from a different run, and unfortunately, that really good run we were watching just wasn't able to make it to the end. Like I mentioned before, it took me something like 30 hours to even get to that point in the run, and I just didn't have enough time to keep doing attempts. Sometimes the games I pick out are like that, combined with me getting bad luck. And then there's other times, where I can seemingly pull good RNG out of my ass. So with that being said, if you guys enjoyed this video and would like to see me run this game again, be sure to leave a like, because if this video somehow hits 5k likes, I'll continue grinding again for that sub 220. Had a lot of fun with this game and wouldn't mind taking it for a spin another time, so I guess the ball is in your court. Special thanks to the Bully speedrunning community for helping me learn this game. There's no way I would have been able to get as good as I got in a short period without their help. Also again, big thanks to Circle for sponsoring this video. If you guys are interested in checking out their products, the link will be in the description. That's all for today's video. Subscribe for more speedrunning related content, and as always, I hope you all have a beautiful life.